Hi, I'm Joseph Henry, one of the co-curators of the British Pavilion in 2023 Venice Architecture Biennial.
That's a good introduction. I'm Jayden, also one of the co-curators. There are two other co-curators, Meneesha, Kellay and Sumitra, Upham.
So how did this group came together to curate this year's pavilion?
You want to take that?
Yeah, we actually all formed, we knew each other from different places. We actually met at a party together for the first time, which was an opening of Yinka Laurie's pavilion in Dulwich. And we then formed a WhatsApp group very shortly after. And that WhatsApp group always was like a space where we'd share ideas, stories, events. And it was in that WhatsApp group that we decided to pitch for the Venice Biennale.
And the best part of 2 years later, here we are.
Must be an active group.
An active group. That's as an understatement.
Yeah.
The group is super
I have to
active.
keep deleting stuff from it because it's taking up so much of my memory on my phone.
Yeah, which was a shame because I went through the photos the other day and I was like, damn, I've deleted the really old photos that I really want to reminisce about. Yeah, it's good.
Why did you decide to tackle this theme in the British Pavilion this year?
We wanted to do something that spoke to we wanted to explore the potential polarity of Britain as a place and the ability for architecture to engage more in wider cultural practices. So architecture being part of a conversation with fashion and music and art and dance and performance, rather than it being its own sort of separate professional class of creativity.
Yeah. And I'd also say that we wanted to explore what it means to be British today through a contemporary lens, contemporary British architectural practice and contemporary British culture. Now, that's kind of what's on display at this moment.
And how do you deconstruct our understanding of what architecture is?
We're challenging it across the board. I think we challenge it from the first impression. I think it was always a curatorial ambition to challenge the nature of this building. We couldn't do this project without dealing with this building, which is why you can see some of the work from the distance in the middle of the Jardini, which is why the works that you see in the pavilion are at scale, that they have to kind of own their space in that moment as well.
So since we're talking about the curatorial process also, can you tell us exactly how you chose these different installations?
You want to talk about the artists?
Yeah, so each artwork is a new commission. They didn't exist previously, so they were made specifically for this Biennale. We originally looked at about 20 different artists, and we wrote a framework, like a brief for for the artists. And then by going through that framework, building that narrative and that framework and the curatorial narrative, we started to think which artist's work speaks most closely to what we're trying to achieve. So we picked artists who worked with narrative making practices, we worked with artists who worked with narratives making practices, whose work intrinsically dealt with the issues we were tackling, but then we encouraged them to work at scale for the first time if they hadn't, or to get them to think architecturally or spatially if they hadn't done that before.
Yeah, and I think it's worth saying that the framework of ritual practice or rituals wasn't necessarily there at the beginning where we were selecting the artists, but there was a commonality between them dealing with material making practices, dealing with their heritage, dealing with culture, dealing with the landscape from which they come, and that still holds true now.
Yeah.
And what do you expect that the visitors who come to see the exhibit take with them as a learning, as an experience?
I think it's interesting that we're now getting feedback from people that have been around the exhibition. So rather than projecting our view of what they'll feel, I'll just recap stuff that people have told me. So a lot of people felt uplifted from the exhibition. People have thought of it as an optimistic exhibition, that there is opportunities to do things. And it's also been interesting hearing from non-architects the fact that they feel like they have a stake to play and everyday life is valuable. So it's been nice hearing the feedback from people visiting so far, and we're looking forward to the wider discourse that might be generated.
And that's amazing to hear. That's some of the first feedback I've heard, and I suppose that rings true to some of the ambitions that we wanted, which is that it's not an exclusive practice. Like, architecture touches people's lives. Everyone has an attachment to a home, attachment to places that they're familiar with, and that those entry points to those places are everyday rituals and customs, and that's how you kind of enter that conversation.
Thank you.
So great, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it.